So we started the show today by talking about a poll that has now come out, and it's really what's being discussed. It's a political poll, but that's potentially bad news. Well, it is bad news for the CAC. There's another poll that has nothing to do with that. It is a city index poll published by Léger, which, if I understand this right, Christian Bourque, this is what cities would be looking at to see how they're doing and how they're basically rated by citizens. Am I right?
That's exactly it. So what we do every year, we have a large sample of Canadians who basically respond to about 60 questions on different elements of how their municipality is doing, from roadworks to waste disposal to public safety to recreation and sports facilities. So about 60 questions about how good their city is doing, but also how good their mayor is doing.
So it's like a bit of a report card for these cities.
Pretty much. What we want is for people, if they did the survey on their own in their own city and they get a 7 out of 10 when it comes to waste management, is that good or bad? Well, it's only good or bad if you compare it to somebody else that's in the same situation you are. So we allow municipalities to compare themselves to cities of roughly about the same size across the country.
Okay, so let's take a look at the breakdown, of course. We want to know how we did. Overall, nationally, is one city doing a much better job than any other?
Well, we don't have it by city because it would require tens of thousands of Canadians to respond. What we do know, however, is that all of the indicators are trending downward over the past 2 years. Right now, if we ask Canadians on average, how do you evaluate the work of your mayor? Mayors get a 5.5 out of 10, so barely a passing grade. When we ask furthermore about something that will be very important in the years to come because of growing costs in different cities, how do you find the level of property tax you're paying? And right now we've got 45% of Canadians who say, well, it's still acceptable. I can still sort of deal with it. But 44% say it's unacceptable for the money that I have available. And in the current affordability crisis, the Canadians are really feeling the pinch. If you're a mayor, trying to say to in municipal council, sorry guys, but we'll increase your property taxes by X percent. Oh, that'll be a tough sell.
So I wonder then if this is sort of a comparison across the country. You're not doing this city to city, and when you say people, I don't know, is 5.5 out of 10 a really bad average, or am I just assuming it is?
Well, it used to be close to a 7, and it's still fairly high if you look at small municipalities. So if you have a population below 50,000, you're still doing okay. But it's when you get into larger cities that we see that issues are popping up everywhere. And basically, I think because of the current context, we're seeing it provincially with what's happening to the CAC. You mentioned it a minute ago, what's happening with the federal Liberals. Right now, Canadians are angry. Things are not going their way, and they basically are looking for who's responsible for the mess we're in, and they're blaming pretty much every elected official, regardless of the level of government. Actually, when we ask the question, come next election, do you want the team that's currently in place to stay in place, or do you want a new team leading your municipality? We only have 27% of Canadians who say, I want the team that's in place right now to stay. So, I mean, all incumbents are suffering because of the economic climate that we're in, and it also applies to mayors and members of the municipal council.
You wonder, though, so you look at this as someone who's, in public office, and you think to yourself, this is not good. The numbers, as you said, are usually or have been in the past better. It would seem to me this is one of those times you may want to just sit and do nothing, because it seems anything and everything you do is only going to make things worse. And we know that inflation is still an issue. Governments are paying, right, more for everything, just like we are. There's no good news that could possibly come out. And I wonder if this is a reason to sit back and, as I just suggested, say, you know what, status quo for now. Let's not make this any worse.
Yeah, I think there's still, when we look at the results a little bit further, when you ask people, what should your city be doing better? And the number one item that comes up is communications. Tell us what's going on. Be more transparent. We want to understand. So a lot of it will have to do with just how cities actually directly communicate with their own citizens. A lot of it goes through social media, of course, today. Not all cities are actually quite good at handling TikTok. I mean, it's sort of fairly new for municipalities, but there's a lot of it in terms of communications. And I think or one of the key messages that we get from what we see in the data is at least that governments act with, or talk in a way that shows that they actually show a little bit of empathy for what Canadians are going through. And it's not always the case that elected officials actually do that. And I think it's part of the blame that people are putting on François Legault, for example, is the fact that they felt he was a bit complacent about the affordability crisis and the lack of housing in the past. So there is some of that.
Well, I'll tell you, with specific, to the poll you're bringing up the CAC in this poll November 17th. That's only about a week or so ago, and we know here there has been so much going on that has affected the government adversely, right? You have public sector unions, nurses, healthcare workers. They're all off the job, and more are walking off the job. They're not even close to a deal. Then you have the issue, and I didn't want to get into this, but you brought it up. So this idea of the hockey team, you ought to do a poll on that. I'd love to see the results of Quebec government deciding to spend $7 million to bring, the LA Kings to Quebec for 2 hockey games, exhibition games. I think all of that it's like piling on a little bit on a government, but that, to me, that's not even surprising to see them having done as poorly as they did in this most recent poll.
Absolutely. Well, that's another way. It's a great example of not showing empathy. If you're spending $7 million on the LA Kings, you're not spending it on me.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that. And right now, a lot of citizens are taking it out on elected officials on social media. I don't know if you saw the report in Journal de Montréal, but since the election in 2021, 9% of people elected on municipal council across the province have actually resigned from their position. And the number one reason that they cited for leaving was basically abuse on social media. Yeah. So we can be angry as Canadians because things could be going better, but lashing out at our elected officials is certainly not the response.
Yeah, that's a great point. And also, by virtue of the fact that we saw a story, kind of what you're referring to now, so many people who have walked away from those jobs, right?
Absolutely.
In politics, which makes you wonder if they're walking away, and for whatever that reason is, and I'm sure social media has a big part to play with it, why would anybody else even want to do that job?
Absolutely. And if you look at mayors in general and members of municipal council, of course, it's not the time to argue for pay raises for elected officials. Yeah. We saw what that did for the provincial government. But in a way, though, if you look at the hours that they're putting in, I bet you they're probably not even making minimum wage. It is hard work. It is a lot of work.
No question about that. I thank you so much. Appreciate the time today, Christian. Merci beaucoup.
My pleasure.